Behind every amazing flavor is an amazing human who has perfected their craft. Welcome to Flavors Unknown, a behind-the-scenes look at new flavors and the chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders who create them, with your host, Emmanuel.
Hey there, welcome to episode 53 of the Flavors Unknown podcast. My guest today is Chef Matt Bolus from 404 Kitchen and Gertie's Bar in Nashville, Tennessee. We talk about our common passion for Bourbon and Rye and his series of Culinary Passport Staycation Dinners that he started during the pandemic. I am your host, Emmanuel Laroche. If you are new to this podcast, I have been in the food industry for more than 20 years, both in Europe and in the US, and every other week I interview chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders around the country. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Flavors Unknown. You can find the show notes from this episode on the website flavorsunknown.com. And now, here is my conversation with Chef Matt Bolus. Hi, Chef. How are you?
Great, Manel. How are you?
I am very good, and I'm very excited to have you on the show. I've been several times to Nashville, and since then I wanted to to have you on Flavors Unknown. So finally, we are making it happen.
Yes, excited to be here.
So how are you doing? How is it going for you during this crazy time of the pandemic here?
I say today I'm great. The weather's fantastic. It's not too hot. It's not raining. It's business looks good. So it's an unusual day during this pandemic. We're good. We're surviving. And that's I think that's the business model for most businesses these days is survival. You know, we're keeping people employed. We're keeping our farmers, moving through crops and animals and whatnot. And so that feels good. I'm not stressed out about it, and not that it's not because it's difficult, because there's so much uncertainty that really, what do you stress about? There's nothing specific to really stress on. So each day's a new day. Today's problems are what we deal with today, and tomorrow's problems are what we don't worry about until tomorrow gets here, and then we deal with them.
So did you close during the pandemic at the beginning of it?
We did at the beginning for several weeks, and we kind of merged with our sister restaurant Adele's and started doing curbside when that was allowed, or when we felt more so when we felt comfortable, because in Nashville they never said you have to close. It was suggested we do the right thing. And so out of safety for ourselves and our guests, and for our employees, we closed, and then we started doing takeout. And, as the phases came up, we closed in winter, so we had to redesign a menu, and we opened up late spring.
And when you reopened, did you change your menu? Did you adapt your menu at the situation?
We did. We kept some staples on that happened to work well for the situation, and that being, we felt our guests were going to be looking more for takeaway food, pre-orders, something that they could cook at home or something they could pick up and just take home and eat, like any takeaway order. And very popular staples that we wanted to keep on actually lent well to that. So we kept a number of those. And then as we redesigned our menu, we kind of focused on, okay, what's going to be food that's a touch simpler, both in preparation and in finishing. What's going to travel well, what's going to, you live 15 minutes from here, but as luck would have it, you got takeaway from us and there was a wreck and it took you 45 minutes to get home, right? And I don't want you to unbox this stuff and think, it's all garbage. No, so we try to think of, in terms of that too. And, not the exercise that any of us wanted to do, but it ended up being kind of a fun thing to do, because we had to think outside our normal scenario, and the menu that we produced, all of us were excited about. It's vibrant. It's very, ingredient focused in the sense of, if we're putting squashes, different squashes on the menu. That's what you're going to taste. It's not muddled by a bunch of other crazy flavors.
So what are the like the staples that you kept like from the original menu then and adapt?
We kept our tri-tip and our smoked fried chicken. We kept the bolognese. Trying to think of we kept the rabbit, but we turned it into a pot pie instead of a stew. We do a really traditional French braised rabbit with Dijon, and
I love that.
It's my 7-year-old daughter will eat it now. My wife made chicken pot pie last night, in fact, and I got a text from her that said, your daughter told me that this isn't the right meat to use for pot pies. I should have used rabbits.
That's cute.
Yeah,
She's an expert already.
Right, they've gone from the cute animals we see eating the vegetables in the garden to, man, these are delicious. Yeah. So we kept those. Cool. And then from there it was, which is the part I really enjoyed. It was, okay, we want to use these ingredients. And this is the type of dish that we would normally do. Now, how do we take that and make sure that it's bright and delicious and also, simplify it and in a more rustic but refined sense. And so a lot of the things that we came up with, like I said, we're super proud of and have turned out better than we expected for some of them.
Did your consumers or your customers like ask for specific dishes as well? Did you reach out to them to try to understand what they were in the mood for?
We did. Well, we talked to some of our regulars that we've just become good friends with, and got different ideas. But knock on wood, the support has been great, and really unsolicited have gotten some feedback on the new menu about how much better they felt it was. Maybe that was just hey, we feel like we should say something nice in these times, but regardless, it felt good to hear that because we were proud of it and we thought we were doing the right thing. And to get that feedback, especially when it goes to from guests that we didn't even know that were friends with investors or friends of friends that called up and said, hey, so and so just called and said this is the best menu they've ever eaten at the 404. It's nice. It's nice to hear.
Nice,
that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of people, wants to get like comforted, and they want to eat like more indulgent food and comfort food. Yeah. So I was curious of understanding like what kind of dishes bring you comfort, when you cook at home, for instance.
That's a hard question. That it depends on the season. It depends on the time of day. I like to focus. Most of my love comes from what I call poor food because I don't have any other better words to describe it. It's cuisines that used what little they had to make the best they could. And a lot of Mediterranean cooking. I love fresh vegetables and the crispness of those. And I love the spices that come out of the Mediterranean. But, you don't want a fresh tomato salad in January. To me, that's when I'm getting into the coq au vins and the confits and the traditional French that I learned in school, just because they're more season appropriate. And plus there's few things that I enjoy more than simmering duck legs in their own fat on the stovetop for hours and hours and hours to produce this succulently rich duck leg, because I don't have a large deep fat fryer at home. I just have one of the tabletop versions. I can actually then finish them by deep frying them to crisp that skin up in duck fat. And it's, I love braised foods. I love meats that you can put in with vegetables and juices and bury in a bed of coals and come back a couple hours later. What's that dish where they put the bread around? Is it a daub? Is that what it is? Am I saying that right? DAUB? Yeah.
Yeah, daub. Yeah.
I mean, when I cook that at home, oh God. I mean, just joy in my heart,
So we have seen you a lot, on Instagram, like a lot of other chefs. But recently, I've seen you playing a lot with like ice cream. So what's the deal with all these ice cream tests that you are doing here?
It's crazy. I don't have, until recently, I really never had much of a sweet tooth. I'll eat dessert, but it's not something that I would just specifically go out for. And recently, for whatever reason, I've discovered this love of ice cream, and I've been on this venture to make a vanilla ice cream, which is arguably the simplest of flavors, but that is so perfectly made with the balance of flavor and fat and creaminess and iciness that you want no other flavor, right? And, then in this quest, somebody said, well, but what about those who can't enjoy ice cream because they can't have dairy? And so I've ventured into the dairy-free side, and which has been just an experience between oat milk and almond milk and cashew milk and coconut milk and whole bean versus paste versus extract versus a combination thereof. And I feel bad. I was texting a good friend of mine who's a chef as well. After almost 25 years in this business, every recipe I've ever experienced, you just add the extract, you cook it, you move on, right? And I was reading one the other day out of a book, and the author was saying, well, extracts are alcohol, and alcohol evaporates. And I thought, God, this makes so much sense. And so what I had to do immediately was make another batch of vanilla ice cream, right? And I used the paste in it.
The paste, yeah.
And then once the base was cool, then I added my my extract. It was a world different. It was noticeably different. And so, I love the fact that I can take a recipe that I've made numerous times before, and one little simple timing change, not even ingredient change, just a timing change, different end result.
Did you finish your quest? Then did you achieve like the ultimate vanilla ice cream?
I have
with
I have
plant protein?
Yes, I have achieved the base. Now I will explore the nuances of vanilla, being, the Tahitian or the Mexican or the Madagascar or the Indian, because each has their own strength and weakness.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, I want you to come to my place and just take the first bite and either be brought back to your grandfather's house or a time, that is really memorable and joyful. Or I want you to look at your spouse or significant other, partner, whoever you're there with, and say, wow, I really love you, but our relationship's over because
I'm staying here.
Because this is my world now.
I'm eating Matt's ice cream in Nashville.
I'm moving. To marry this ice cream, and you'll get the divorce papers later. Yeah, that's it.
Very cool.
Obviously, it's a lofty goal, but we all have to have that.
Exactly. So, Chef, talk to us a little bit about your concept in Nashville. So you have the 404 kitchen, and then, of course, on the basement, you have like the Gertie's bar, so which is another exciting location. So can you take us through a little bit about, those two concepts and the kind of food that you are serving, and we can go to the bar after.
Yeah. So 404, it's I've never been a man of great words because I always get, I can never think of the right thing when you say what style of food you cook. I don't have this catch line that sums it all up. Southern born and raised. My paternal grandfather was Lebanese, and is my first food memory is Lebanese food. I went to a French culinary school in England, and I start a lot of dishes like an old Sicilian lady. So I think it's probably, yeah, right. I'm a true mutt.
What a mix.
Yeah, right. And I love all kinds of food. So, honestly, I think it's a Southern-based cuisine, a Southeastern United States-based cuisine with heavy Mediterranean French influences.
Okay.
I really I try to cook a lot of things your grandmother did, just in a more refined, better way. Sometimes it works, and sometimes you say, no, my grandmother did that a whole lot better.
So how do you approach like a dish? What's your source of inspiration with this really melting pot of, like the Southern roots and then the French education in the English, country, a British country, and cooking like a Sicilian, Italian woman, you said. So what's your inspiration?
I like to taste in everything. I want to try it in every form: raw, cooked, braised, stewed, pureed, roast, whatever, right? But mainly you start by just tasting and you know that you taste this particular ingredient. And from there you say, oh, well, this, and this go with it. And this, and this go with those. And I kind of make a list of all the things that would work well together. This is a dinner party that everybody's going to bring something to the table, right? I read a quote a long time ago that I didn't understand that I very much get now. And I wish I could remember who said it, but the quote was, a young chef looks for what they can add to a dish. An older chef looks for what they can take away from the dish. And yeah. I think that's where I'm at in my career is if I put roasted peppers on a dish, and that's the dish, right? I want to use as little as possible to accentuate that pepper and amplify that pepper so that you taste the beauty of what the pepper was to me when I ate it, right? And so for that dish, I start thinking, oh, okay, there's seasonings that I'm thinking sumac or za'atar from the Middle East. I'm thinking olive oil and anchovies, from the Sicilian style, low herbs and peppers, because they're growing in my garden together, right? So I see them together, I smell them together. And so I'll start there and just start playing around. And I try to start small. And if something needs to be added, you add to it. One of the things that I always focus on is acid, brightness, whether it be lemon juice or lime juice or apple cider vinegar or anything. Acid is going to bring out flavor in a big way. It's going to balance things. And it's amazing still to this day to me when you're tasting a dish and it's there, but it's not, it's so good, but there's just something missing. And it's, that spritz of lemon juice in there and you mix it up and you don't taste lemon. What you taste is this bright dish that you thought was almost perfect that now is starting to shine.
So do you have inspiration that comes as well outside of food? Because here you're talking about, like taste association. So it's based on your, I would say, memory of, taste memory, of things that you have done before or tasted, before. It's about, as well, that seems like what grows together goes together, right. And then this idea of like the acidity, like brining up, like the profile of a dish. But do you have anything that's ever that inspire you coming outside of food?
Music,
okay.
Definitely. We were in the kitchen the other day, my chef de cuisine and I, the only two in the kitchen, and we were just playing around with some recipes for this new staycation menu, and she had Nina Simone and John Lee Hooker and B.B. King playing, and I told her, I said, we have to change the radio. She said, I thought you liked this music. I said, I do. Well, right now we're trying to cook this kind of Scandinavian, Ethiopian Harlem mix of food. And I hear this music and all I want to do is eat oysters on the half shell and drink cold beer. Like, that's, so I can hear music and gain inspiration food wise from that for sure.
You're working a lot as well. You were talking about during the pandemic, it was important for you to, support the farmers, support, like all the different purveyors that, obviously you are working with. And I know you spend a lot of time with seafood producers, fishermen, meat farmers and so on. So can you take us a little bit through how you create like a strong relationship, between the chef and, the purveyors that, you have been in connection before?
I want to meet you as a purveyor. I want to know what kind of person you are. And I'm horrible about asking you random questions that have nothing to do with business at hand, right? But it's kind of, I guess, my way of a little bit of character, experience, and what's your sense of humor like, and what are your interests outside of the farm or the boat, or I don't want you to bring me this beautiful ingredient and then I find out that you're a heinously bad person, because then I can't use your ingredients no matter how good they are, right? That's morally, I don't want to deal with that kind of person. And then I want to see your farm. I want to see how you treat the land, how you treat your animals, your produce. Are you picking them and throwing them in a bucket, or are you one of these farmers that has cold water on hand, and you're throwing vegetables fresh into cold water. So they're somewhat shocked, but they're in a good environment, right? They're not just sitting in the hot sun and starting to wilt immediately. Are your animals happy? You know, you can taste happy animals. That sounds really morbid, I know, but you know, I remember the first time I saw a farm fresh egg, right? And it was in London, and it was one of my French chefs, Christophe, who is just a character in and of himself. And I have this egg yolk in my hand, right? And it's tall and it's almost rusty, orangey yellow, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've separated these eggs, and we were in pastry class, and I smelled it. It smelled okay. But I'm holding it in my hand, and I went up to my chef and I said, Chef Christophe, you know, is this egg yolk good? And he says, oh, mon petit, it looks fine. And I said, well, yeah, it smells okay too. And he goes, so why is it wrong? I said, I don't know. It's not yellow. You know, it's not it's not a store-bought egg. And he said something in French, which I know the definition or I know the meaning of now, and about Americans, and walked off. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll use it. You know. Yeah, the only French I speak is really dirty kitchen French. It's kind of funny. And I can think a long rainy weekend in Geneva and the Ozzy Osbourne show for that.
Okay, got it.
Well, yeah, that's another story. But you know, that's when it was like, oh, why is this? And so I had to learn about it. And oh wow, you know, when chickens eat what chickens are supposed to eat, you know, bugs and seeds and little things like that, they produce this yolk that is not flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not this nearly translucent pale yellow. They're actually very tall and fat and rich, and you know, and then you see something like a duck egg yolk, or I've gotten a line on some goose eggs that I've been using. Goose egg yolk nearly looks like a small tennis ball. It's beautiful. So, you know, I want to see that. I want to know how you're treating animals. I want to know how you're growing things. Are you bringing me these beautiful vegetables and then spraying them all with all kinds of stuff? You know, that's not good. And I don't focus so much on organic. I think that's great. My biggest priority is sustainability, because I don't care if it's biodynamic, organic, if it's, you know, thrice recycled or whatever you want to call it. If it's not sustainable, then why are we doing it? Right? Because eventually you're not going to have it. Right? And why is it not sustainable? And so I look at that, and I'm almost loyal to a fault in purveyors, in the sense of price is important, but it's not the determining factor for me.
Did you keep your contact? Especially, I'm thinking that when you were in Charleston before, you know, with some of the fishermen, and because now you're in Nashville, so obviously there's no coastline over there. So, I definitely did keep contact with them. Yeah,
definitely did, and even if I can't buy from them, I can still use them as a resource for different, you know, for knowledge or whatnot. And you know, I loved it. We worked with a guy from Abundant Seafood when I was at Fig, and Mark Mahefka, and he came in one day and he said, this guy keeps calling me and I don't understand what he's saying. And he's talking fast, and Mark's got this big personality, and he's this great guy. And long story short, it was Eric Repair. And Eric had heard about this amazing seafood that Mark had, right?
Yeah.
And he called and said, hey, I want to buy your fish. And Mark's like, yeah, well, are you in Charleston? I'll stop by. He's like, no, I'm in New York. He's like, yeah, I sell to Charleston. He's like, that's fine. And, you know, Eric's got a fairly thick accent, and, you know, he speaks a little quicker, and Mark's just, you know, old Southern boy. And, you know, basically it comes down to Eric's offering him twice the money. And Mark's like, yeah, I don't know who this guy thinks he is, but I'm not shipping to him. And myself and the guys working with, like, you just told Eric Repair no? Like, what are you doing? But, you know, he was loyal to his local guys. And I love that, you know, and one of the things I love about Nashville is, other than that fresh seafood, you know, I can tell you within an hour and a half where 90% of my ingredients come from. Other than, you say, our stock carrots and onions, things like that we just use for stocks and sauces and stuff like that. Everything else comes from within, you know, like I said, an hour and a half, 2 hours most of here. And I think that's fantastic, because if I want to if I want to take the whole kitchen to Bear Creek Farms to see the cattle and the pigs that we buy, in an hour we're there. And then in 45 minutes from there, we can take them to the processing plant. And, it's great. And Bear Creek's a perfect example. You drive up to Bear Creek Farm and Leanne and Bill have this beautiful farmhouse and these rolling hills down in Leaper's Fork. And then next to it, it looks like a shack. And, my first question was like, I wonder if that was like the original house and they bought it. It's never tore it down. No, it's a house, a small little like shack house that Leanne had built for the sows when they have babies so that she can be close to them.
Okay.
And that's the kind of caring, that I want to see. Like these people genuinely care for their animals.
Okay. Yeah. And then you build those relationship, and then obviously trust, then comes in, and then they are there as well to support you when you need something, special, that's critical.
When things like the pandemic happen and we all get shut down, Bill and Leanne were one of the first to say, "Hey, so we're all in this together. What can we do to help you all?" I was like, "Wow, absolutely. I'm thinking about what I can do to help you." And like, let's just, figure it out. Like, this is okay, great.
So you have those, new things that I've seen, on your websites, and as well, I've been reading about it. But can you explain to us this collaboration that you're doing that you call like the Culinary Passport Staycation Dinner series?
Staycation, yeah. So it came up during quarantine when we were all stuck at home, and a lot of us had vacations planned that were canceled, and the kids were at home and everything else, and all the food festivals got canceled and all these things. And so it's like, what people want to do is get out. And it's not just they want to get out. They wanted to go to New York, or they wanted to go to Italy or wherever it is. Right. And so how do we bring that to them? And nobody can travel. And when we thought about this, you couldn't just hop on a plane and fly up to New York and go grab Marcus Samuelsson and say, "Hey dude, let's cook together. Let's do a dinner together." So we just started reaching out to people, and it got met with a lot of enthusiasm. It's like, God, I would love to do a dinner in Nashville, and I just can't be there. So yeah, let's do this. And so it's, it's like, hey, you want some great barbecue from Raleigh because you were supposed to be there for the summer to see your aunt and uncle. Well, we're going to bring them to us, and Andrew Zimmern and Marcus Samuelsson and Carla Hall. And so it's a way for us to offer a little bit of, get away from the normal, break your routine of uncertainty and travel a little without having to go anywhere, without having to, worry about it. And the best part is, you can come pick it up and take it home. You don't have to wear a mask. You can sit in your backyard and have a picnic of food that you could only get at Red Rooster or one of Marcus's restaurants.
So how does it work practically? Because let's say that you have the one coming with Marcus Samuelsson, for instance, Marcus Samuelsson. So of course he's not in Nashville, correct? So how the people are going to get access to food?
A lot of back and forth between Marcus and I about a menu, a lot of recipe sharing, and then trials and tweaking things and. We came up with a fun menu, and we've been cooking this food. And this is great for myself and our staff too, because, one of the things we love is having a guest chef in or staging, when we go work at another chef's restaurant. And so we get to do that now on a very regular basis. And we get to experience other things, which in turn is another form of inspiration for me, as well as, another way for me to learn. I don't have to travel to do this either. It's a blessing and a curse in this industry. I get to go to New York and work with Marcus Samuelsson for a week and do these dinners, right? But the curse is I get to tell my wife, "Hey, honey, I'm off to New York City for a week to cook with Marcus Samuelsson."
Sure.
And she's like, "Oh, great. Yep. So I'm going to stay home with our two kids and you're going to go have fun with Marcus." That sounds delightful. And now I get to do this. I get to work with Marcus. I get to make this food, but I also get to bring it home to her. Right. So she gets to enjoy it too. And to me, it's like, that's it. People that want to go, that have always thought, man, I'd love to eat his food but have never had the chance to. And now I can't. Oh, no, you can. We're bringing it here.
So who you are going to collaborate with? So I heard Marcus Samuelsson. I heard Andrew Zimmern. And
Andrew
who
Zimmern,
else?
Carla Hall, one of the most amazing humans on the planet, and is from Nashville. So she was super excited about it. A good friend of mine, Vivek Surtees, we're going to do an Indian menu. He and I did a dinner together a long time ago. So we're actually bringing that menu back we've both matured and done bigger and better things since. And so we're going to revisit that. So, an Indian flair. That's the great thing. I get to work with all these wonderful people and try new things and experience new things. And, I've got hundreds of cookbooks at home that I try new stuff out of on a regular basis. But as my wife would tell you, why can't you cook the recipe in the book? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm a chef. I see things I already want to change. And she's like,
recipes are for guidelines. That's it. You don't
right,
have to follow the recipe.
But if I want to try, Gordon Ramsay's ABC dish, that's what I want to try, not Matt Bolus's version of it. I'm like, okay, that's fair. So I'm actually, this is Marcus Samuelsson, and it's going to be Andrew Zimmern, cool. and yeah, it's neat. It's been fun for sure.
Very nice, very nice. So now I would like that we go down a little bit, like several steps, and we go to your basement, and we have a little. I'm excited with this part. With we go to your famous bar called like the Gertie's bar.
Yeah, Gertie's whiskey bar,
and which is one of the most famous place in Nashville when it comes to whiskey, and I would say bourbon rye, obviously. So. Yeah, can you talk to us about this place, and especially where this? Probably you're born in a bottle of bourbon in Kentucky, but where's this passion? Where this passion comes from?
Well, and so I'm originally from Kentucky, and just have a long history of bourbons in the family, and so I think it came about naturally. It was always my drink of choice, and when we were at our original location, our little tiny 40-seat place, we started off with a typical list, and with my inability to say no to fun, cool, delicious stuff, it built and grew and grew and grew. And so we had, I wish I could paint the perfect picture for you, but you can imagine 3 shelves that were 8 feet long, but we had 3 tiers on each shelf, and it was full. I mean, from top to bottom, it was full, and hundreds of selections. We had so many we couldn't even hardly count them. And you could, God forbid, you wanted one of the top ones in the back corner. Like the bartender had to be, nearly an acrobat to get to it. So when we came over here, when we got the opportunity to take this place over, we saw this basement.
Across the street,
we thought, oh, look at this wall. Look at this gigantic 30 some odd foot wall that's, 15 feet tall. And, it was one of my partners like, look, you cannot hit 4 digits. And I was like, oh, but we can. He's like, no. What I'm saying is we can't. Okay. we don't need to. And so, but what it did was allow us to really spread out our collection and see what we had and see where we needed to add and to balance it. And then the great thing was people took notice of it, not just customers, but purveyors and distillers. And so people were coming to us saying, hey, how do I get my bottle on that wall? And I thought, man, you're actually asking. This is cool. And it grew. And so we have 700-ish selections right now from all over the world. Yeah. And it's just one of those things that it's kind of a hobby, passion turned into an obsession, I guess you would say, but turned into something that, that it is today, what we've created.
The best place to stay during quarantine. I should have known that before.
Worst places to be.
Like in a Gertie's bar.
Right, so, exactly.
So do you specialize, do you have like a specific focus, on the type of whiskey that you put on the shelves, like small batch or like unique?
No, just because of our location, we're bourbon heavy, not unlike the whiskey bars in London that'll be Scotch heavy, right? They have access to stuff that we don't have access to, and we have access to bourbons that they don't. And so it is more bourbon centric. The focus is really on flavor and flavor profile and the nuances of it, and what people have realized over the course of probably the last 10 years is like, much like wine, you have vineyard that releases the same Cabernet year after year after year, but '08 was better than '96, and blah blah blah. The same thing with these whiskeys, in particular, some of the smaller producers. You take the Van Winkles or the Willets, that every barrel is different, right? And it can produce. I have barrels that were produced on the same day, barreled on the same day. It actually came out of the still, the same still, right? Not even that they were made the same day. The exact same liquid put in two different barrels stored on top of each other, and they're different. And so, we buy that way, and we'll pick up some for collections that just, show the breadth of the family, but that's where it starts. But, you can come in and try 4 different vintages of a name, and it's really fun to see, like, oh, wow, this is the same recipe, right? The same ingredients. And you start asking, why did it change? Because it should, in my world, in the culinary world, if you make the same thing with the same ingredients 4 different times and it tastes different each time, you're doing something wrong, right?
Yeah. But here the bourbon or like the whiskey or spirits in general, the one that are aging, obviously you have like the impact of, like the aging in the barrels, and even now you can even have like the finishes, with the different casks. So that's going to as well have a, have a different impact.
That's another rabbit hole. And I can't tell you the hours of conversations that I've had with distillers about barrels and the wood, and when was it cut and where was it cut from, and how old was the tree, and how was the wood dried, and how was it charred, and what was the fuel for the charring fire. And I mean, it's just like, there's so many variables that you almost quit thinking about it and just enjoy it for what it is. To me, it's one of those things where somebody will say, oh no, that's a horrible bourbon. Guys, is it? Or is it just not your liking? Because some people like super spicy, some people like super sweet. It doesn't make it bad. It just makes it not to your liking, which is why I think there's so many out there now. Because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, what was there? 15, 20 selections on the shelf, maybe? And now bourbon has aisles and aisles and aisles of shelves. So,
yeah, and you were talking about the Willet. I mean, Willet is one of my. I love their, their small batch like the rye. It's one of my favorite rye. And I know it's a tough question because there's so many varieties, and then depending of the time of the day, and if it's before dinner or after dinner, but this you have like a one or two like main one that it's like your go-to.
Willet is definitely, I'm like you. Willet would be my desert island. If you eradicated every brand in my life and put me on a desert island, and that would be the one that I would want to take with me.
And I love their distilleries too. I mean, the place is really beautiful. Yeah, it's cool.
The Colesving family, good friends. They're great people. Again, you meet them and you realize they're a great family.
Just for the little story, when I was visited the distilleries and we were, in the place, where they were aging, and you have all the barrels and so on, and there was like 2 or 3 huge like ham that were like drying, in a bag. And we said, what is this? They said, oh, this is Sean Brock. This is ham. I said, what?
Yeah, hanging his hands in there.
Exactly. That was funny. Sorry.
Yeah, and but Joe, you think about that, but that goes back to old mezcal traditions. When they're hanging turkeys or rabbits or chickens in the still while they're distilling mezcal. And so why not? You have these vapors. You walk into that rick house and that's all you smell is that angel share. And so, it's a great theory, and it proved to make just an amazing ham. Why not take all those vapors and let it soak in as it ages? Completely.
So you were talking about Willet. This is your go-to, like to bring in an island. What else?
That would be the one. Rye as well. Rye to me is one of those, I think, that kind of got a bad name for a long time, but is a fantastically delicious spirit. From the caramels and the toffee notes. We've got one here that I'm not a Tootsie Roll fan, but the chocolate that comes off of it, the only way I can describe it is the best flavor a Tootsie Roll could ever hope to have.
What is the brand on this one? Do you remember?
That's Willet. It's Willet.
Oh, the Willet too. Okay. Yeah.
It's a barrel we picked called All Right, All Right, All Right.
Okay.
But again, like you said, it just depends. If you're looking for a good mixing rye, to me, George Dickel has one of the best ryes for the money there is.
I like some on the 1792 as well. There's some great one. Yeah, they have done
if
some
you're having our
good
Port
job.
Bolognese, the James Pepper rye. Oh, such an amazing pairing. Just killer. So yeah, I mean I really got into the Japanese, which is more Scotch-esque, but the balance and symmetry and I'm trying to think of the right word, the delicateness of their flavors in their whiskeys are just stunning. And one of those that truly you have to choose. Do I want my piece of cake or do I want to eat it too? I'll find myself sitting with those glasses. Like, I don't know if I just want to sit and smell it more than I want to drink it or drink it more. It's so, yeah.
Can we talk as well a little bit about, you being a chef and focusing on flavors? And you were talking about the most important aspect as well in the whiskey that you have is about flavors. So have you done any exercise of whiskey or like bourbon, rye, and food pairing? Some of your dishes. How any suggestion about things that goes well, with different profile of a bourbon or rye?
So perfect. You get the pork and rye, roasted pork chop, glass of rye whiskey, the pork bolognese. I always loved the poached pears that we did at Cordon Bleu. And, old school French desserts that most people don't get excited about. And I can understand why, because it's a pear. People don't think about it. But a good friend of mine, Scott Crawford, out of Raleigh, North Carolina, came up and did a dinner with Kavalan whiskey. Actually, it's Taiwanese. And they had a sherry cask finish. You're talking about the cask finishes. Okay, so sherry, pears, okay, those go together. Smoky pear, that goes together. And so we took this Manzanilla cask finished Taiwanese whiskey and a little bit of butter and some sorghum, and we gently poached these pears. Just mind-blowing the flavor that came off of it. It was like they were the perfect marriage of flavors. And one of those that it was a dessert that you could see like, oh, you're just going to serve me this piece of sliced fruit and the braising liquid and that's it. And then you eat it and you go, touche. Like that's, I love apples and bourbon in many forms, from apple pie to using apples. I roasted some butternut squash. I believe it was a pork tenderloin. And I did it on the Big Green Egg. I put this fat cap on tenderloin on the top rack, and underneath that I built a little boat of aluminum foil with butternut squash and garlic and herbs and Gold Rush apples and drizzled bourbon all over it. Drizzled a Buffalo Trace bourbon all over it, and just let it slow cook. Oh, you get these crispy apples with this bright oaky, woody, earthy flavor. Yeah, and it's so. Yeah, that's the thing too. When you get outside the burn of the alcohol, there's flavors in whiskeys that you would never think of: marshmallows and mints and eucalyptus and honeydew, and it's insane. And you can find it in anything. I mean, we got a barrel of wild turkey here. It was the first bourbon, and the reason I bought the barrel is the first bourbon that I'd ever smelled honeysuckle on. And honeysuckle to me is when I smell that when I'm driving home at night from the restaurant, and I've got my window down and I can smell honeysuckle in the air. Spring is here. Like, everything's going to be that bright green and fresh and crisp. And it's that scent that only lasts for a couple of weeks, but you try to soak it all in. And as soon as we poured that in the glass from the barrel, it's like, oh, this is it. It was a true love at first sight.
Have you ever done like a menu, with a bourbon pairing at your restaurant or not yet?
Many, many, many times.
Many times. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've done it with loads of people. From Buffalo Trace in there. We did one with a whole Weller collection, the entire Weller line. We've done it with Four Roses, Medley Brothers, Kavalan. We did it. We featured all their line at that dinner. Yeah, I mean, just that's a very regular thing.
Very cool.
In normal times, I should say.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yes. Hopefully, whatever the new norm is going to be, that you can do that again.
Right, I agree.
So let's go back a little bit in time. So what compelled you to become a chef?
The dislike of my job. No,
Okay.
I put simply. No, I cooked in restaurants all through college, and I started interning at Merrill Lynch. I still cooked at restaurants. After college, I got a job as a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch and did that for several years.
That's different.
Yeah, well, that was what I had told myself I wanted to be. I found myself, when I would take clients out looking for the best restaurants to go to. And I found myself, if I had a great day, I would go home and cook a big dinner and invite people over. If I had a bad day, I'd do the same thing. And I still filled in at the restaurant that I'd started working at. From time to time, somebody would call out or whatever, and I'd get a random phone call and be like, yeah, I'll run the grill tonight. Absolutely. And so one day I just realized I'm a lot happier at midnight on my hands and knees scrubbing a kitchen floor after a great service, that euphoric feeling, that adrenaline rush, those endorphins, than I am sitting behind this desk in a nice suit earning great money. For my age, I was earning tremendous money. I would tell you the number and you're like, well, it's not that much, but it felt like a lot to me. And,
sure.
But I was unhappy. I was unhappy with everything. And what I do, I went home and I cooked a big dinner and I told my mom, I said, I went over to my parents' house that weekend. I said, I think I want to cook for a living. She said, great. I said, yeah,
okay.
But
Wow.
I got this job at Merrill Lynch and we paid for you and Dad paid for a degree in business. And she's like, and you're always going to have that degree. I said, well, there was that dilemma. Yeah, that Monday I resigned right then and there. And, I went back to the restaurants to make sure that I wasn't an idiot. Right. And it was kind of like this early midlife crisis. I wasn't married, didn't have kids. And, and both my parents were so supportive. Like, yes, if you're going to do this now. And so what I found was I was working 2 different restaurants and I was doing about 85, 90 hours a week. And really I had like Sunday nights off. That was it. Saturday mornings and Sunday nights. And as tired as I was, I found a happiness that I hadn't had in a long time. And so started applying to schools and got accepted to this place and that place and wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I don't know how I found Cordon Bleu, but reading a book or something, I guess. And I applied kind of as a joke because I didn't think I could get accepted. I did. And so I was like, I've got this chance to move to London and go to school. I kind of talked to my parents about it. And my dad said, look, you got to realize, by the time I realized I didn't like what I did, I had a wife and a kid and a mortgage and a car payment. And he said, and I don't regret any of that. I love all of it, but I didn't have this opportunity. And you're not married and your mortgage is very, very little and you can sell your cars. And if you're going to do it, this is your chance to do it. And so I did. Sold everything, stocks, bonds. I had, a bunch of precious metal investments, got rid of those, sold my cars, everything. Took off to London and I would do it again in 2 seconds and would recommend it in 2 seconds.
Yeah. When I have like a chef on the show, I always pick up their brain and ask for their suggestion how to cook, a specific dish, for food enthusiasts or like home cook or foodies, whoever you want to call them. So we were thinking like maybe, talking about like chicken wings and how you could do maybe like a Matt's style, chicken wing. What unique spin would you give to them?
The first thing I'm going to say is cheat. Okay. And I know that sounds weird, but here's the deal. Like cooking any type of poultry or really anything in a fryer to perfection, meaning it's cooked all the way through, but not overcooked and is difficult at best. Right. And I don't care what your level of experience is. So start by pre-cooking your wings in an oven or on the grill, on a smoker, whatever. Don't cook them at 400 degrees. Cook them at like 250. Let them cook nice and slow until they're tender. 168 degrees. They're perfect, right? And what that does is it allows all that stuff to break down and you're left with this tender, juicy piece of chicken. Because if you cook them too high, you're going to cook all the juices out. Then you can fry them until they're crispy and you don't have to worry about eating raw chicken. That would be my biggest tip for it. And so many people, for whatever reason, don't want to do that. And I don't get it. It's like, what it does is it when I worked for Mike Lotta at Fig, one of the best things he ever said to me was, Matty, take all the variables you can out of the situation. The less variables you have to deal with at the time of preparation, the better food you're going to make. And it's true, right? I don't have to worry about the timing of this because your home fryer right now says it's cooking at 375, but is it? Right? Or is it 350 or 360 or is it 425? We don't know unless you're just probing it all the time with a perfectly calibrated thermometer. And so take that variable away. Have this chicken cooked. I would brine it overnight. And that's going to give it, a lot more flavor and juiciness as well. Pre-cook
Do you put anything on the brine?
I like brown sugar in my brine. The spices, I think you should go with whatever sauce you're going to use, like kind of mimic that. So you don't want to throw a lot of herbs in if you're going to use this boisterous buffalo sauce because you're going to lose them, right? But the garlics and the onions and the stuff like that, definitely. And same thing, you might not want to put a lot of clove and allspice and stuff like that in there if you're going to use a sauce that's not going to marry well with that kind of anise style flavor. Brown sugar, salt, garlic, onion, that kind of thing. And then when you fry them, especially for wings, if flour does okay at best. To me, rice flour or cornstarch is what you want to use because that's going to give you that glassy crispiness that you're looking for. And season that flouring because every step of the way, what you're not seasoning is going to be bland, right? And so that's why one of the reasons you brine your chicken is because you're seasoning it. I still, even after brining, will still toss my wings in salt and pepper before I fry them if I'm not putting a dusting on them. If I put dusting on them, the dusting has been seasoned with salt and pepper.
What kind of sauce do you like to make?
What situation we're in? We're watching the Super Bowl. I'm going Frank's Red Hot with equal part Frank's Red Hot butter, cilantro, and lime juice. Cilantro and lime juice are not equal parts, but those are the accents. Yeah, we're doing it something on the back porch at home, just kind of hanging out. I love fish sauce and wings. And I like to make a fish sauce caramel with ginger and loads of ginger and garlic. I mean, loads of ginger and garlic. And then, let that stuff reduce and your wings come out of that oil hot, toss them immediately in that, maybe some scallions for that fresh kind of oniony bite. Peanuts. You want to go back to a whiskey pairing. Whiskey and salt roasted peanuts. Phenomenal. And if you want to play on a cocktail, Coke syrup is the best if you can find it, which is hard if you're not associated with a restaurant or know somebody that has one. But you can always reduce Coca-Cola like in a 2-liter and reduce it to a syrup put a little fish sauce in there for the seasoning, put your bourbon in there so you have your quote unquote bourbon and Coke, right? And you got this nice tacky syrupy liquid, right? And salty roasted peanuts. Toss your wings in that bourbon and Coke mixture, and then dust them with those chopped up salt roasted peanuts. Phenomenal. We used to, as a kid, you'd see people, and we picked up on it. Put the salted peanuts in your Coca-Cola. It's such a fun flavor,
Okay, yeah, I have to try that. I haven't done that one. And then for the people that do it on the barbecue and not fry them, so that would be like the same approach, and then they just put like brush the sauce on it.
Yep, that way, or just pull them right off the barbecue and toss them in a bowl. To me, a smoked wing like that, if you're pulling them off the barbecue or the big green egg, however you're doing it, just a traditional Alabama white sauce is the best way to go.
I love it. Yeah,
that smoky, creamy, all goes together. The spicy, it's like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Matt. I'm going to finish with a series of rapid fire questions, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, come on.
So what's your favorite guilty pleasure food?
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
and I'm not even going to tell you how much I eat of it. It's I will
the pint of ice cream.
Yeah, the pint's an easy go.
So is it the vanilla your favorite flavor?
My favorite guilty pleasure is mint moose tracks. And then a lot of times I'll add white chocolate chips to that as well.
Okay, why not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
What will be your, let's say, 3 type of food or 3 dishes that you cannot live without cooking or eating?
Oh, wow. Like 3 styles. I couldn't live without French, Italian, or Middle Eastern food. That's for sure. And as much as I love Asian and Indian food, those three just like I could die on those. Wow, that's a tough one. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I couldn't live without. I have to have those.
Oh, wow.
I know that's completely off track.
I'm sure your daughter is the excuse, of course, to eat them.
You know what? She doesn't like peanut butter and jelly. Now, my 1-year-old son will attack one like you haven't fed him in a week. You know, gosh.
Third one, last one.
Third one. Yes. Let's see. You know, it's always a crowd pleaser is a chocolate lava cake.
Okay.
That's just always so good. It's on my brain.
Yeah. Why not?
That's what I say. Why not?
Why not? 3 cookbooks that inspired you the most over your career.
First and foremost, The French Laundry. It is one that anybody can use, home cook, professional, everything. I've read it countless times. Eric Ripert's A Return to Cooking. Phenomenal, where, you know, he admittedly got burned out and just said, look, I'm going to travel, and what I'm going to do is go to markets and I'm going to take a writer with me and an artist with me, and you're going to paint the food I cook, and you're going to write about what we're doing, and I'm just going to cook food, and we're going to eat and relax. Third one, Anthony Bourdain's Le Hall.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I've done a lot of cooking out of that, and was his life story ending tragically early, but his life story and progression I've followed a lot.
Okay. So if I would come to your house and you open the fridge, what kind of condiments, sauces, that would you have in there?
Condiments and
you
sauces.
Like that one?
That's good. We have amba, both spicy and regular, which is an Iraqi mango-based sauce. We have Duke's mayonnaise, Welch's Concord grape jelly. We have, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, Mai Dijon mustard, Maille.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, Mai. Yep, Mai.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I don't want any other Dijon ever.
Yeah. I have the same one. Yep.
We have Heinz ketchup.
Okay.
Enough pickles to kill a small army. And I have so many various animal fats.
Oh, really?
I have duck fat, beef fat, pork fat, dry aged beef fat. At one time I had beaver fat, but I've used that.
Beaver fat? Where do you get beaver fat?
Well, from beavers, of course.
No, yeah, that I would get.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I
what do you use it for? What do you use the beaver fat in?
Sauteing vegetables. I had the chance to get a couple of beavers
potatoes
to cook, and so yeah,
interesting.
It was very,
I don't find those in New Jersey.
No, you might, but you don't want to eat those guys.
That's interesting. Okay, what's your
we have Estrato? It's a Sicilian tomato paste. Estrato, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's like a sun-dried tomato paste that is phenomenal.
Okay. Last question: What's your biggest pet? What are your biggest pet peeves in the kitchen?
In the kitchen. Okay, I'm glad you said that because I had this conversation the other day. My 2 biggest pet peeves in the kitchen, not in the restaurant, but in the kitchen, are one, when you store air. I cannot stand the storing of air, right? So you have 1 quart of an ingredient and you put it in an 8-quart container, and I want to choke you, right? And I hear, chef, it's the only container we have. Bullshit. There's racks of containers. So obviously you can tell I get very mad about storing air. Storage is limited, and we're going to utilize it to the best we can. Consolidate, rotate, don't store air. And then I can't stand this, and this goes for my home kitchen or my restaurant kitchen, is when you open something that has a safety seal and you just partially open it to get the little bit of ingredient that you need, and you either leave the remnants of said safety seal where you've ripped it like a real jackass, or you leave the entire thing just flapping in the wind and put the lid back on it. Tear it all off. All of it. All the way. It's all not hard. Yes. It doesn't take you that long. So don't be so rude and self-centered that you leave the safety seal partially torn. Blows my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, Chef. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time and to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great being here.
There it is, me and Chef Matt Bolus chatting about Bourbon and Rye. I really cannot wait to be able to travel again and spend some time at the Gertie's bar in Nashville. Hope you liked this episode, and if you did, please share it with another chef or a friend. It will only take you 2 minutes, and it will help me a lot to add more listeners to the show. I want to give, again, a shout out to a great forum, an educational resource for chefs called The Learning Chef. It is created by chefs for chefs. They have a great Facebook page and Facebook group. It's called The Learning Chef. Check it out. Thank you for listening. And in 2 weeks, my guest will be Chef Jeremy Umansky, and we will chat about fermentation and koji. I see you in 2 weeks, and until then, remember that people who love to eat are always the best people.
Thanks for listening to Flavors Unknown. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review. Find the show notes at flavorsunknown.com. And if you want to join the Flavors Unknown community, search Flavors Unknown on Instagram and Twitter.